Right in the medium.
Talking to the side of the mic. I'm just joking. I know. I'm just joking.
Am I doing it?
I'm just joking.
Did you say I can talk to the top? Don't you know about the bird? Hey, everybody knows that the bird is a bird. Bird's a word.
Can we just open with this? With George just jamming it out? Bird is the word. Can I just hit record?
I think it is recording.
It is recording.
That was pretty good, actually. Is that the Family Guy? Is that what it's from?
I mean,
that and the real song.
I mean, it is
Oh,
the
yeah.
real song before the Family Guy.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh, wait, we get to clap again.
Welcome everybody to Bobby Talks. ... Those dots are there to tell you that there's always more to the story. We are live here in the Orange Wall studio, sitting here with Conversations with Friends, episode 3. But we are on season 2, episode 1 of this new season. I appreciate you guys being here. I've got some people that I haven't seen in a long time, and then out of the blue, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, we started playing poker, started playing cards together. Yeah.
Lots of poker.
And actually, you guys are more of my brother's age than you are my age, but I don't think you two were as close to my brother. But Matt, I know you definitely were.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad you are here. I'm here with Jerod Schmidt, Matt Enders, George Rutledge. These are brothers from another mother. How you guys doing? What's going on?
I'm doing good.
Yeah?
I just worked all day and now I'm here. So
Yeah, and now you're not on call, and that makes me a lot better. I thought you
know.
were going to just walk off the set.
now I'm happy. We figured it out.
Good deal. Matt, I appreciate you being here. I know there was a little bit of nerves, a little bit of anxiousness.
I just got to keep, myself in check.
Come a little closer to the mic. Let's see it.
Sorry.
Keep yourself in what?
Just in check.
There you go. And Jerry, what about you, buddy?
Hey, worked all day. I am on call still, but I won't have to leave. So
Even if they call, you're not leaving?
Oh yeah. So just
what
answer the
happened
phone. Answer the phone. That's about it.
Well, I brought these guys on my show because what we've been trying to do, and this would be the 20th episode of this thing overall, which I'm very, very proud of what we kind of built here. Obviously, you can tell I put a lot of damn money into this thing, and we're really trying to get rolling, especially this season now that I got the time and I kind of know what I want it to be. But I brought them on because Conversations with Friends is supposed to be just that, that idea when you're in the car driving late at night, you're on a road trip. I just got back from WrestleMania down in Florida. I wish I would have had, somebody ride there with me so I could do a little bit of talking. But the idea is just that those are the best conversations that you have. Somebody says something stupid and then everybody ribs him on it and then off we go. And so now I just need someone to say something stupid.
George.
Okay, thanks.
I just appreciate you.
I assumed that the name George was stupid to you, so I appreciate that negative input.
That negative energy, don't bring it here. What was it, like 2 months ago? We were sitting and playing cards one night out at your place. And somebody had brought up, I don't know what the initial conversation was, but it went from quantum physics to string theory to the... And I still never fully understood this one. Is it a theory or is it just like the power of observation?
You're talking about the double slot theory? Or
that you were kind of going off of.
Observation.
Yeah, where you're talking about the cat in the box and the whole thing and why that got started.
Essentially, yes. It's that at very high level, the power of observation changes the outcome.
And I was waiting for like the mind blown moment because to me, I didn't really fully get there.
You didn't. No offense, but it was. You were just like, but.
But
you just
I know it's still alive, or I know it's not, based
It is
on.
both, you're right.
It's
both.
It's both, right?
Until you observe it.
That's the whole idea. But you said that stemmed from what though? What was that theory called?
I don't know if that stemmed from anything. I don't.
Okay.
Where did you hear it?
You said it was like
It's a Schrödinger's
the
cat,
double
whatever. The double slot theory. That's on the quantum physics
side. Okay. But either way, George, the reason we are sitting here today is because I thought it would just be fun to just kind of sit down, throw a topic out there, and just see where we go.
Okay.
So why don't we start here? We were talking about, and we don't have to get too far into this because I know you got a big speech coming up on Monday, I think it is. But we were talking about, I'm an athletic director, just to kind of remind the audience, but right now we're kind of being faced with this new kind of compliance form that our kids have to either consent by or not. And the question is going to be whether or not they should. What happened in the winter when MHSA and MDHHS got together and said that you had to wear your mask the whole time that you're playing the sport? So as a player of basketball, you had to go out there, wear the mask, and play the game. And a lot of people thought that was an infringement on their liberties, infringement, and whether or not it was an overreaction, whether or not they should be doing it. Now they are allowing us to go outside and play baseball, softball, run track. They're saying you can take the mask off, but now only if they consent to me, the athletic director, testing them 1 day a week, and that like an antigen test.
Like a rapid?
Like a rapid antigen test that will tell you if you are positive or negative, even though there's the whole cases of false positives, right? But now we have a community that's very prideful, and half of them are saying no, and we're going to keep playing. So now the question is, what should we do? Should this even be allowed? What do you think?
I mean,
I know you have thoughts on it, Jerod.
Well, I always kind of default back to any policy that's going to be involving high school age kids, teenagers, whatever, any school age kids. They have a right to that education. The administration, the government, they don't have a right to be testing kids for anything. I mean, there's a right that we have as parents to decide what tests we're going to allow our kids to have to partake in. So when it comes to COVID, everything just keeps defaulting back to COVID being this huge menace that virtually any new regulation can just be
as long as it's
pushed through. So, I mean, come on. Like, kids should be able to play sports without having to be encumbered by a mask. If you're running up and down a basketball court, there's no reason whatsoever that you should be forced into wearing a mask.
Early on, we had parents, and this is this is my pushback to that. I understand what you're saying. Totally agree. Because I think we're the only state in the union that's actually being forced to wear a mask while they play these sports. The issue is that I kind of hate the overreaction too by the other, like the overcorrection by the other side, where they're like, I just know that these masks are going to have long-term effects. How do you know that?
Nobody knows anything.
Right. So the question becomes like, where should we fall on this? Because it doesn't seem like right now in this day and age we're ready to compromise on anything.
My question is, what's the cost of a rapid test for all of the athletes?
Well, we get it for free.
Oh, okay.
So the entire state is now providing that to us because
somebody's paying for that test.
But again, somebody's paying for it, and I'm sure it comes back down to the taxpayer.
Right.
But
I mean, I don't know.
I'm all for not wearing masks. I think I'd be okay about the rapids, but the rapids are only, I think, 84% even effective. And I only would say I would consider it because, like, I don't know if my child might have some underlying issue that got missed. Like, you see 15, 16, 17-year-old boys just collapse in the middle of a game of a heart attack because they had some hole or something that got missed. So who knows if my child has something, right? And now if everyone got rapid tested and no one's positive, cool. I'm not going to worry about my child then maybe contracting a disease that could lead to
death. We have a
we have a scar
member
tissue somewhere in like a lung or a heart. Like, I don't know. It's so unknown. But I also hate masks and I hate COVID. So I hate where I'm at.
I got to tell you, I was just in Florida. Literally, nobody's abiding by that. I mean, it's a suggestion. When you walk in, you have a mask on, but like right away. I mean, there's people that don't.
I mean, we're as a state, I think we're back where we were a year ago, basically.
Where we first started.
It's a different variant now. It's the UK variant.
We
But that's what's hitting hard, I guess, now.
I've been wondering all the way through this why they haven't kind of surveyed surgical staffs to see how often somebody that's been known to wear a mask for their entire career.
That's been exposed to it?
They're wearing masks 8, 10, 12 hours a day sometimes,
But then
they're in and out of the OR. So they're claiming that these masks have all these like horrible long-term side effects. You're depleting your oxygen level, and kids shouldn't do it. And they, kids are wearing these masks for, 6 hours a day, give or take. I'm not saying that it's necessarily a good thing, but I don't know of any surgeons that have these dire long-term side effects. Or OR nurses, or, I don't know. I've never seen any research on that. I don't know.
And that brings, you can say it this way. You can say that it's just another thing to pit people against each other.
Yeah,
and if we want to get into the conspiracy, into the talk that brought us here.
Sure, yeah.
It's the theory of the ants in the jar. You take 50 black ants and 50 red ants. You put them in the jar, and they won't fight. You shake them up, and they start attacking each other. Shake them up, dump them on the ground. They're fighting each other. It's all about black versus red. It's essentially, as Jerod was speaking, there's going to be a group of people that are going to oppose whatever we come up with, and we're just forced to come up with solutions to appease or to attempt to appease both sides, and it's just a distraction.
Yeah, and I got real loud, didn't I? I think you're right there, because early on, I can remember having a conversation with my superintendent and my principal, and just was like, how am I supposed to enforce this mask policy in the crowd,
Right.
when our own board was split
Right.
on the mask policy? So we have more of suggestions than hardline policies on anything, where your story was more of a hardline policy, where you were talking about your particular school district where your kids go and how they are being drug tested. That's interesting in its own right, because I've heard of some schools doing that. And I guess my question becomes, before we kind of dive into the ants in the jar thing, because I've never heard that before.
No, I was just trying to kick them off to going on their rant.
Sure.
I was just gonna say I work in an OR. I have for the last like 5 years, and I constantly wear masks.
But do you feel...
And I smoke. Like I have no issues. I run. I can run like I run and smoke and wear masks all day. So like it's no big deal.
I do know people
me.
on the other side of that, though, that are like that refuse to like want to take part in something because they felt it wasn't safe enough because of the COVID, but are heavy smokers. Isn't that interesting?
Right.
Yeah.
And that kind of dives
But
into
is that
where...
addiction versus I don't know, but it's a choice either way you make it, right? It's a choice. It's a choice to smoke, and I guess it's a choice to wear a mask. But if you make the choice to not wear the mask, some places will kick you out.
Right.
I went to this
That's
gas station
right.
down the road from my house the other day. I pulled up, and this woman was just leaving. She was pissed, and she's just stomping off to her car. I'm like, I wonder what's going on, right? And I go inside, and they're just talking like why I had to kick her out because she refused to put a mask on, and that's their policy of their store.
So they nailed it.
They did,
Really?
And I heard the woman checking out. She's like, "Well, thank you for saying something." So she was thankful for it. Meanwhile, the girl who was like storming off was pissed, and she like spat out. If anybody was in her way, I'm pretty sure she would have hit her. Like that's just how mad she was.
But like, it just, to me, I see those types of people as, and I hope no one here is a flat earther, but if you are, I will listen.
I will listen.
But I guess the part
I
that
won't
bothers
either.
me is we don't have time. It boils down to me. The reason I'm so stressed all the time is this logic that we have whole groups of people, and there's theories on how social media has made that possible because there's validation amongst groups, and you get validated on your crazy theories and all of that. We still have groups of people that are doing it.
Right.
When there's pretty hard science that disputes it. I think, or please correct me if I'm wrong.
But the problem is, and I just had this conversation, all right, is that we as a society, like you talked about, we're divided. We have never been more divided, right? We are about as divided as we possibly can be. Yeah. I mean, as far as like 50-50 split, right? It feels like that at times, right?
It's like a tug of war.
Right. And information and facts, so we call it data and science, that is now becoming subjective, right? And it's being kind of interpreted and twisted, and it's no longer truth. It's your version of truth versus my version of truth, your version of how you interpret it versus my version of how I interpret it. And now numbers, which I always thought, because this is the way I approach the world, I lean on science. And that's why I've been so frustrated with a lot of the data that's sent to us, especially as the athletic director. We'll get the data sent to us. They'll say there's no proof that it's being spread from 13 to 19, and then yet we have to wear masks when nobody else in the union is. That don't make any sense. Why are we going away from the science? I tend to lean left. I vote independent, but I tend to lean left. And I would say that I always kind of associated the left as being that would be more open-minded to data and science, right? I don't think that's a stretch to say. And then they go out, and at least Gretchen Whitmer goes out and constantly is on the opposite side of the fence on this thing. So where's the truth lie anymore with people? If we can't come to a common ground on something, how can we have a conversation?
Well, I think a lot of it depends on where you're getting your information from. I mean, a lot of people are just blindly following what the CDC says. Right. I mean, is anybody
Or they're blindly following some random ass meme from Facebook.
true? Yeah.
I think it's part of that.
Yeah.
I recently heard that there was a study, and this like scientist, like it was like one of the worst discoveries of his scientific life, was that misinformation, like false information, is spreading six
Times
times
faster.
faster. 6 times. So you figure for every one good nugget, there's 6 shitty nuggets.
Right.
Traveling
Poop nuggets.
And that's because we're emotionally based. We find something
yeah.
that sounds like that person's credible, but has no idea what they're talking about,
Right.
and we share it.
Or I mean, or in all honesty, most of the time, just reading a headline on. I mean, it's been I gotta find it. I'll send it to you guys when I find it. But there's I call it a flash game. That just shows my age. I think flash isn't even a thing anymore. But it's on the internet, and you.
I don't.
I'm
Half my audience just goes, "What the hell is Flash?"
I'm getting there.
Flash Gordon.
Flash.
Half the people in this room said, "What the hell is Flash?"
Sorry, my nerd came out apparently. But long story
flash
short, it's
forwarded
a
you.
game that shows how you can create a fake account and you can just essentially say something that starts a poke at some side to start the war, to then hire bots to help support one side or the other, and just it really shows how that can be done.
Okay.
Fairly easily, and it really opens your eyes to seeing, like what Jerod was saying, just believing a headline even. Or something I say to you, I read this here, and you're like, oh, you go tell 10 people. It goes on your point of 6 times faster.
But to your point of where you're getting your information from, even if you're trying to get it from a credible source, right? And this was the conversation that is kind of that I was having that stemmed from this, is that, I've looked at like certain universities that do non-biased media charts, right? And I've had some episodes on this very conversation about like, NPR, little up a middle, right? Associated Press, BBC. These are things that you're supposed to be able to trust. But then it becomes, well, what is Harvard? Is Harvard left-leaning? Are they right-leaning? Or where are they at? So now you're constantly going down this rabbit hole where you're trying to find the credibility of whoever did it when there's supposed to be like these checks and balances in place. And if you're watching news for affirmation versus information, you're going to be somebody that doesn't want to hear the opposing side. And then when they do get kind of mixed together, like the ants that you were telling about, we just kill each other.
Yeah. You want to hear your own truth.
Right.
But that's the problem. Truth is supposed to be truth, is it not?
So like basically there's no such thing as non-bias anymore. Right?
That's what it feels like.
It's just everything's super right or super left and nothing's in the middle.
42% of people believed that the election was rigged.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where you guys fall on this, but
That's a big percent.
is that not in your... If I'm a Republican, I would be scared shitless of that number. Voting is all you have.
Right. 42
Right?
is huge.
42% of your people think that the election was rigged. They're not going to. They now think that your civil duty is rigged. It's tainted now, and they might not come out in the next election and vote.
Oh, I've heard tons of people say that they're not going to bother to vote ever again. I mean, after this election, they said, nope, not going to do it. And, I mean, I don't know. How do you argue with that? When you're disenfranchised, when you feel like you got completely screwed over, like your vote, like...
Let's dissect that, though.
Fool me once, right?
Right.
Well,
Fool me twice.
exactly.
Like,
There's a
Let's
very
go down this
strong-
road,
I mean,
'cause
there's a very strong vein in this country that nobody trusts the government anyways. I mean, elected politicians tend to... You see countless, scandals and all sorts of things that are going on, and then you see all sorts of, pseudo-government organizations that, parade around. Everybody thinks that they're part of the federal government, and they're not part of it. The CDC is not part of the federal government. Right. I don't know if it,
the Federal Reserve is not part of the
Federal
federal
Reserve
government.
is not part of the federal government. These are privately held organizations.
I forgot my point.
But if you're privately funded, you are leaning toward your funders.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Yes. So
Which
we have
is
to.
why
So-
lobbyists and all that shit altogether just
Right.
fucked. Like it needs to
Right.
get big money out of
that's what it
everything,
was.
politics based, because okay, cool, I need this big thing changed. Well, here's $6 million. I'll feed you 20 more once you get elected and we pass that law. Sweet. You get like 10 of those people doing that. That's a lot of money.
Right.
And that's steering the ship, I think.
So what you're actually getting at is the influence, whether it's money, power, where you're talking about the influence. And the narrative in this country, so when I think of that 42% of people that think, the election was rigged.
They can't trust voting.
But where did that narrative start? Let's just take that one example.
I mean, I feel like it's been going on for a long time.
It's been there.
Florida,
it's stronger now.
Florida, George Bush.
Yep. Hanging Chad.
2000.
Yeah.
So
the
like
hanging
that
chads.
that started
Pregnant
it.
Chad.
But Bush won, and I think everyone just forgot about it, right?
Yeah.
And then I think it's just been kind of this lingering thing until
There was talks
Trump.
like wouldn't
In
like
2016.
Obama wasn't there like
His
there
whole
seems
thing
to be
was
always a group.
they just
that's
thought he
always
wasn't
like, yeah.
American, like he didn't.
But when
his was the
I
birth
thought there was some
certificate.
talk of election fraud though.
There was.
But when the rubber hits the road, and we actually deep dive and look at the numbers, there's always small percentage of fraudulence in every election, but it's not enough to turn an election, right? Nobody's ever said that. Nobody's ever rang that and alarmed that bell. So the question becomes, when they did their deep dive this time around, and same percentage, same type of idea, how do we get to 42%? Where does that come from? Where did that narrative?
This time they did find a lot of a higher than statistically average percentage of fraudulent things that were going on, at least from some of the research that I've seen. So I mean, this wasn't all just. Dude, you should watch the My Pillow guys documentary. Did you watch that?
I
mean, parts of it.
I haven't watched it. No, but I've read up on this.
Parts of it are boring.
Right.
I mean, if you're not a big, into politics kind of person, and I'm not huge into that stuff because some of it, you dive down a rabbit hole, and I'd rather not spend my time doing that. But some of it, I mean, there is stuff that statistically it would be impossible for that to happen in the current political climate in this country. Yeah. So there can't be that many people that are saying that they're voted Republican, but actually, like, when they shut the curtain on their voting booth.
But do they provide proof, or is this all anecdotal?
It's a lot of it. It was proof. I mean, it was there. He had a very long paper trail.
So let's go here though. Let's go here because this is I want to talk about this. So you say there's proof, right?
Yeah. Well,
that this My Pillow guy, we don't even know his name, but My Pillow guy puts together.
Lindell.
Okay. So he puts together a documentary,
and that's probably going to get this video yanked off of YouTube.
I'm sure.
Just to throw that
and if it does, then I will be the first to come back and say, yeah, there might be some truth to what you're saying, because there's a lot of stories about how people just had their YouTube videos taken down for just sharing information.
Oh yeah.
Not even presenting it as one side or the other, just saying this is what we saw, right? But you've got this now, right? So the question then becomes, Fox News will take it and they'll run with it. Everybody else is liberal?
Do I think
I'm
everybody else is liberal?
I'm asking.
Everybody
else? Because I listen to NPR every single morning. I do pay attention to the Associated Press, the only app of news I have on my phone. I've never seen that stuff.
I think the biggest fallacy that everybody still thinks is that there's actually two sides. Like, there's a good side and a bad side. There's liberals and there's conservatives, or there's Republicans and there's Democrats.
Who's shaking the jar?
Right.
It is.
But my argument was...
My personal belief is that everything comes right down to the Federal Reserve and the central banking system. that is my deep down definite belief.
How many people do you think are involved in that? And if it's thousands, you're expecting every single one of those people to keep the secret. Like, I'm sorry,
which we've learned they can't do.
Dude, no one can keep the secret like that.
There's not a secret for them to keep.
Right.
Like, are you talking about specifically for this election?
Maybe. Just
talking about this election, yeah.
So, first of all, I don't know that there would really be that much of a secret per se to keep if they rigged voting machines or whatever they did. I don't know about all of the computer side of things. They're claiming that there's satellites that were breaking into voting machines and beaming stuff all over the world. I don't know about all that.
But
stuff.
what about Georgia? Georgia's Republican ran.
Yeah.
And even Trump had a problem there. I mean, I don't know if you guys ever heard the tape of him being on there with the Secretary of State saying, I need 11,000 more. But then people are like, oh, it's doctored, and you didn't hear the whole thing. But there was 18 minutes of conversation there, and it was leaked that way. And I get it. Things can be taken out of context, but I listened to the whole thing, and that was essentially what he was saying is that you can do more here. And he didn't go as far as maybe the CNNs or definitely the MSNBCs will want to make him to be. But to me, my point was, going back to the influence portion of it, is it's so very dangerous because he was the face of the party, right? Not just the Republican Party, an entire movement for those people. And they would held on to him to the very end and still do. I have the guy up there, they still got Trump 2020 signs in the yard. Now they got 4s on him, right? This guy comes out and says the election was rigged, refuses to. I mean, that is dangerous.
Everything he says is the truth, no matter what.
No matter what.
No matter how wrong it could be, a lot of people, and I've seen it myself, like they take it as gospel. And it's like you're listening to somebody who is a real estate agent, basically. Not a real estate, but yeah.
Okay, well, the only thing that ever drew me to anything politically that Trump had to say, honestly, was that, number one, he had never held elected office before. He was never a politician. And number two, that he was a businessman. And
his approach
he had nothing.
Was endearing, yeah.
He really had nothing really to gain by running for president.
Right.
But
I
his
mean, he had everything
2016,
to lose
his
by running
2016
for president.
campaign was just stellar. Like he
Genius.
killed it. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And for 2020, he didn't do.
He missed the
shit.
boat.
He just was like, I'm just gonna let my namesake carry me the way out. I'm not gonna say anything good. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just.
Well,
gonna,
he lost the election with the virus.
By
telling them not to vote by mail and to go there in person.
So many conspiracy theories about.
Well, he might have lost by telling people not to mail in their votes. Maybe because I mean, you figure a lot of people are probably.
That's what I'm saying.
It's even if you are super right leaning and very Republican, but you're 80 years old and you've got, I don't know, diabetes, hypertension, all these other diseases.
Right.
You are still afraid of coronavirus.
You are.
Because you've seen what's happened to people in your, I guess, age bracket with these other comorbidities. You know?
My grandfather has Parkinson's. He voted by mail, but voted for Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, it still existed. It's just when you are the influence and you are telling people no, you're going to get results on that. Yeah. And he didn't, and everybody else was like anybody but Trump, right? And it was, we're going to vote by mail. And that's why when on the election day, when all the day or in-person votes got done and everything was like 70-30, 75-25, everybody was like, oh, this is rigged. And it's like, no, it makes perfect sense, right? But here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do.
But I heard an interview with somebody like a week before saying this is exactly how these numbers are going to come across.
Right.
Oh,
You're going to see
how it was going to play out?
Exactly. And they said as soon as you get to see the mail-ins,
you'll see this.
You're going to see a huge swing, and they predicted it, and that's exactly what happened.
That is exactly how it played. Hang on, real quick, Matt. Here's what we're going to do. So I've lost my video. Okay, no worries. We'll get that running again. Still got the audio going, so we're smooth sailing. We're going to come back from a break.
All right.
I want to hear what you've got to say, and then I want to pick up on why everything is linked to the Federal Reserves.
Hey.
Uh-oh.
And we'll dive into that.
Hey.
All right, we'll see you on the other side. Bobby Talks. Here we go. Season 1, 2.
Yeah, they were like, no wonder, and they were all wearing singlets and wrestling.
Oh, nice.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What does this have to do with?
Are we doing this?
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Season 2, Episode 1, the premiere of Season 2. I'm sitting here with Conversations with Friends. I got George Rutledge to my right, Matt Enders over there wearing all that beard, and then my man Jerod Schmidt with the beautiful flow. We are off to the races. Before break, we were teasing a story from our one and only Matt Enders. Matt, you wanted to tell us kind of a mind fuck of a story. Tell me what you got, man.
Okay, so I saw this the other day. I have to give a shout out to another YouTuber, Mr. Ballin. I recommend everyone check him out. He tells amazing stories.
Mr. Ballin.
Mr. Ballin. He's ex-Navy SEAL, like Ballin, B-A-L-L-A, like B. Allen. Ballin.
Okay.
I was like ball in.
No.
I thought he was going to take me to something like that, too, yeah.
No, ex-Navy SEAL, amazing guy, tells amazing stories. So,
Sorry, go. I mean, leave it to me.
When George said ball in apostrophe, just thought that wrecked it. The show's over.
Go ahead.
It starts with Mitch is a senior in college, and he meets a lovely lady, and he chases her, and he falls in love, and they spend 2 years together, and they're married. He's having an amazing job. She is pregnant. They have a daughter. By the time that his daughter is 2, he's making enough money where she can stay at home, and so they have a son. He spends 6 years, perfect life, right? Spends time with the kids at night. They play games, right? Shortly after his son is born, he looks in his living room there, and there's a lamp. It's a red lamp, and it's blurry, right? So he's sitting there, and nothing else is blurry. And he goes up and he looks at it, and it's he can't focus on it. It's just blurred. He spends the next day off of work looking at this lamp. It is now upside down, just a lamp. His wife is asking if he's okay. He takes 3 days off of work watching this lamp, and it's just morphing and flipping and turning. And at some point, he cannot respond to his wife.
Is he looking or staring? Like
He's like sitting on the couch, just like
is he
He's just
engrossed?
zoned out now.
he's just zoned out on it.
It's kind of like Fourth Kind movie.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
What's the movie I'm looking for there? Steven Spielberg movie. Oh,
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't think of it now.
something of the Fourth Kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Anyways.
right around that time that he cannot communicate to his wife, the lamp gets big as the room. All he can see is this red color. He has an intense pain in the back of his head. And right about then is when he opens his eyes. And he's on the ground at his college. There's a crowd around him. He's scanning the crowd for his wife and his kids. He can't find them. He's scooped up by paramedics. He's put in an ambulance or a police car. He's asking where his wife is and asking what's happened. He's told that he got into an altercation with a football player, and he got hit in the head. And when he fell, he hit his head. That 10 years with his wife was completely made up in his head while he was unconscious right there.
Oh.
Like, he had to go through years of therapy. He had PTSD.
Because he missed this family.
He missed his family.
So he was making it up in a coma?
Yeah,
basically?
essentially, yeah.
But it was so real to him over that time period that
He spent 10 years. He went to work. He had a family.
I don't even know what to do with that, man.
This is the kicker. He still occasionally will see his son, perpetually 5 years old, in his dreams, but cannot hear him. Can't understand what he's saying, but he's trying to talk to him.
And I'm assuming he sought help, and what do they say?
I mean,
what do you do?
This is a true story?
I believe so. I saw it yesterday. I did a little bit of research and found an unrelated Reddit article that somebody posted, the person typing the story in. It feels fairly, it's probably like any story.
still, I mean, it's kind of like, imagine like Alzheimer's type thing, when you just stop seeing somebody
Dementia.
grow.
I mean, to answer your question, I assume they treated it just like any loss of, any therapy you would need if you lost your wife and kids.
That's a good point.
To him, he did.
Yeah. To him, it was real.
And
I guess I'm more thinking like, is there some neurologist or neurosurgeon or team of neuroscientists saying, hey, like, there's an explanation for this?
I mean, I'm sure if we dig into it, there's probably other cases of people having those types of things.
Yeah.
We've all had dreams that felt real. I started going into theories of like, I'm pretty confident that the girl, like his wife, was probably a girl that he saw and found attractive in passing. Maybe he only saw her once.
Right.
What if some of the personalities and things of the people that were in his dreams, his kids and things, were just like your alarm clock can be incorporated into your dream? What if there was just conversations that were happening around him while he was unconscious?
And you kind of piece together this
Right.
world
And
that
that's
was
what
just kind of...
That's what drove
Right.
the consciousness of these people or their
It's like
tendencies.
falling asleep watching Netflix, and like you hear in the
Exactly.
background, your dreams kind of mirror those.
And
sometimes.
anytime you look anything up like this, there's a famous Star Trek story or episode that follows this same premise. Captain Picard, long story short, meets a race that essentially this race was dying, and their way of making sure their culture lasted was they had this beam that they would shoot you with, and it puts you in a similar state to coma, where he lived not just 10 years, he lived an entire lifetime with this culture. He learned how to make a flute. He played the flute. He had a family. He had kids.
And that kind of prepared him for...
And when he came out, he still had he made it like he himself
had this
made the
acquired
flute.
this
He could
knowledge.
still play it, and it was a way of them making sure their culture. They gave everybody a chance to live a lifetime in their culture.
God, that'd be awesome to acquire knowledge while sleeping.
Right.
Like documentary type work. That'd be
a
awesome. wouldn't
Demolition
it?
Man.
Yeah.
Wake
Oh,
up
yeah.
with
They-
Stallone and
but
he
like-
can sew. Right? The other
There's-
guy like learned
Matrix.
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, Matrix.
There's a lot of like science behind what happens in sleep. Like when you sleep, like they say there's like scrubbers that like,
Yeah.
so you experience just so much stuff every day, and when you sleep, your brain spends a lot of that time just basically getting rid of all of this stuff. But like the example that I heard was someone trying to learn a guitar riff, and they're just practicing, can't get it, fall asleep. Scrubbers work. They scrub out all the bullshit and they focus on what this person was trying to do with their guitar. Wakes up the next day, tries it again, and all of a sudden, holy shit, I can play this thing that I couldn't even go to bed playing, but now I can play it.
There's studies that say that
something happens when you're
like
sleeping in your
Inception
brain.
like study before you sleep for tests and stuff like that. You retain they always say you retain information.
Well, what you were saying, it reminds me, I can't remember what book it was, but they talked about what actually makes a person that particular person, and they used another Star Trek story where like it would, but they used like the transporter, right? So you remember like on that show, like you'd stand in that thing and it would like it vaporized you, you know?
No, I had sex in high school. I don't remember. So.
Yeah, Star Trek was like way before probably your time. But anyway, so like what happened in this one episode was the one character was getting like beamed down to this planet, and the planet, they were like evacuating the planet. It was gonna whatever blow up. So he got all done with that, got everybody off the planet. He was the last one to beam back up to the ship. So the way they explained it was, imagine that there actually was a machine that could like beam you from, you know, here in Adrian, Michigan to wherever,
right,
Lyons, Ohio. So it would actually like separate every single atom of your being, and then it would reassemble those in the new place, you know. So it was, so basically like it just vaporizes you to atoms, and then it copies everything that you are, and then it puts you back together. So that's the whole theory of how that works. So what happened was there was a malfunction in between the getting back to the ship. So the transporter on the planet remembered what he was made up of, and as soon as there was the malfunction, it put him back together there using, you know, what it already had on file, and the ship put him back together on the ship using what it had on file. So there was two of him, and the one on the planet, you know, existed, and he survived and everything, and the one on the ship survived. Well, the ship circled back years later, and here he is back, you know, on this planet. So now there's two of them. So what is it about a person that actually makes that person that person? And when you start getting into like Alzheimer's and different neurological things, you know, that person doesn't even know that they're that person anymore. They don't have any of their memories. A lot of people say it's your memories that make you who you are.
Well, yeah.
That's what Elon Musk is exploring.
Right. And to go off of that, I was going to give you guys another mind fuck, if you will. In I'm not trying to bring religion into this, but what you have to touch on it to make my point, and it leads into two things off your transporter as well. If you could be
highly religious thing.
All I can think about is Tommy TV from Willy Wonka. How they like shrunk him down, and then Willy Wonka's like, "Well, we can't make you big again, but like we got you small."
Right.
But they disassembled every particle of him and
Tommy
made him.
TV.
Is that his name?
Tommy TV.
It was.
Was
I think
it?
it was.
Yeah.
So like
Mike. It was Mike.
It was Mike.
Tommy TV.
Mikey TV.
So,
TV Mike.
To go along like the lines of like the depression and things I was talking about, where like if you could be downloaded, like right now, to Jared's point, they made a copy, and at that exact moment, they were the exact person. Their memories and everything were of right then. They obviously went on to make their own memories, but at that point, they were split. If you could like download your conscious into a computer,
Yeah, like
are
on
you still you?
Transcendence.
Like, but like
that Johnny Depp movie.
from outside, people were like, "No, you're in the computer," but you got to think about this. You yourself
Made those memories.
Do you know that you're even in a computer at that point?
Well, now you're getting into simulation type thing, right?
You don't if it's done right.
I think so.
If it's done right.
How many memories do you
Like
have
a
from
Vanilla
high
Sky.
school that like you talk to somebody from high school that you haven't seen in 10 years?
Right.
And you talk about that memory, and their memory of it's totally different than what your memory
True.
is.
True.
And I
But,
look
like-
back on it and I'm like, oh man.
Have you heard?
like,
You've heard a
what?
story so many times that you've put yourself in that story.
Right.
Like, oh, I was there with you when you
Right.
know damn well you weren't.
right.
And
then
you embellish the story a little bit more
A little
every
bit each
time
time.
to tell it, just a little bit more to make the kind of the mystic growth of it.
Right.
But like, you can tell someone else's story just as good as they've told it
Yep.
to you if you've heard it enough.
Yeah.
And you can be like, yeah, I was right there next to him.
I'm sure we all could
Oh, and
think
we're
hard
very
enough.
good at lying to ourselves too.
And we could all think hard enough
but it's
to
like
find
a
a story that
false
we could all do
memory
that to right
kind
now.
of that you
Easily.
can plant.
Yeah, but
But
that can change, like what we were talking about outside, like that can change reality. I mean,
Right.
think about that. Like your mind rebuilding that story,
Right.
think about that story, that changes your actual
Yeah.
reality.
Right.
If you make it your own, you become that person that was in there.
Yeah.
situation.
Then it becomes
Or
what
future
is your
choices
reality.
that you make off of that.
Yes.
And to go back to the teleporter, if you can be downloaded, there's a theory that another theory of the teleporter, instead of it completely disassembling you and reassembling you, it's essentially making a copy. So
Right.
it's making a clone on the other end, and you're actually killing you step in here and that one gets killed once the copy is successfully made on the other side. Is that still you?
Well, and then
Dude,
the
there's
question
a company
becomes,
doing that.
Right.
They're focusing. Yeah.
Neuralink.
Yeah, Neuralink.
Which
They did a monkey playing a video game with his
that's-
mind and stuff. But there's cloning. Yeah.
Oh, you mean the cloning portion?
No, like downloading memories into
Oh.
a zip drive.
would-
That's what. So
Sign me
Elon
up.
Musk has already talked about how like Neuralink, and I'm sure you're familiar with that, right?
I'd heard about it before even Elon Musk's name.
Oh, really?
That's his-
Well,
yeah.
Neuralink is his company.
That's his company.
So
That was
right
some
now
podcast
they're
a
working
long time
on
ago, I heard.
they're working on like Alzheimer's, and he's trying to come up with a way to heal the neurons and do all that. But it's an actual chip on top of the brain. So now you are the cyborg.
Right.
And essentially, right? So these are an extension of us, but now when we put that on there, and he says it's got the capabilities of, being a Google machine, right? You can think on the spot, so you won't need the ability to think anymore. You just have it. But with the memory portion of it, though, going back to like downloading something or revisiting a memory, the question is should you? Because imagine how great it would be, like my grandfather's my best friend, right? To be 60, 70, 80 years old where he's no longer present, and to sit in a room and share an experience or get the same feeling as if he's sitting right there next to me. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, because I don't know that you get closure and things of that nature.
It's a form of immortality, kind
Right.
of.
And
It
I guess ultimately, yes, and it's in the search for immortality. But and you bring up a very good point. I never thought of what it would do to the others. And actually, you talking on your point brought up, if you haven't seen it, there's a Black Mirror episode. If you guys haven't seen those, where same thing. There's a company that essentially can use your social media to build an AI. To build you, if you were to, if you were to pass, we sign up for this company. They go through an AI machine and it pulls you out based on your, your posting things. And
Yikes. And a lot of the sites that I visited,
well, no, just in general.
because that's going to be one messed up Robert.
I mean, it would look at the sites that you visited. I mean, if you want to get down, if you
Never
want
heard of it. What is that?
if you want to get into the details, it would look at the sites that you visited to figure out the type of person that you were. That's how it would work. But
Right.
essentially, then you get mailed this AI bot that's you, and the show goes through the stages of, at first it was amazing, and then it shows like little subtle things where they're sleeping and he's
He can't, right?
just laying there with his eyes open because he's
It's that
He's programmed to- he
Limitless
doesn't
with
have to-
Bradley
yeah.
Cooper. Have you seen that? Mhm.
Yeah.
By the way, that movie was Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
looked it up.
We were way off. Yeah. Anyways,
You were way off.
yeah, I was way off.
You're the wrong
You
number.
were nowhere even
You
near
kept
it.
saying fourth. I'm like,
I kept saying,
Encounters.
well, you know why?
Thinking
Because I
Fifth
keep
Element.
thinking
I
like,
was like, Fifth
yeah,
Element?
Fifth Element.
Yeah.
Multi.
I was thinking the Hateful Eight.
movie.
Oops, keep going. I missed a number.
Sorry, wrong director.
Isn't there a
totally.
movie just 9? Isn't that with Tim Burton? Are we just going to name
Little
movies with
sack
numbers
movie,
now?
like the little sack guy.
We
Yeah.
can talk about
Yeah.
movies all
We
day. I
can't
would
talk about
not mind.
I've never heard of a movie.
That's in 2
9.
weeks.
Heard of 7. Remember that movie? That movie was messed
movie's
up.
That movie
Dude, I was
was.
talking about that today at work. Weird.
What's in the box?
What do you think about that, though, simulations?
I mean, I guess.
Do you have a theory on it? Do you believe in it? Do you think we are living in a simulation?
No, that's my opinion. Sorry.
You think you just flat no? Where's your proof on that?
Where's the
mean-
proof that we are, dude?
Well, no, I'm not saying. I'm saying both. Can
I'm
be,
saying I feel
both
personally
sides can be argued, and you just kind of went with no. So I'm just
because I think
Next topic.
Yeah,
so-
right.
No, I just don't think we are,
Back
like-
up your no.
I say back up your yes or maybe.
Do you know how much science and math is built into like the plant level, like the things that they're finding that only are done in programming, and I don't have examples, but I can look it up. But literal things found that you would only find in like coding of a web page, found in nature, found in the building blocks that is us.
Yeah, but then you can argue
Yeah.
that the flip side of that they got that information to put into websites
Absolutely.
off,
Right.
from nature.
Yeah, like most medicine is not just. It's basically a concentration of something they found in nature, usually, right?
but
And they
the-
find out what it does to your body, and like, oh, cool, we can tweak this here, tweak this there, but it starts
I
from
think
something
there's an
in
argument to be
nature.
made that everything is from nature, even the stuff that they claim is synthetic or whatever you want to say. I mean, technically,
Yeah, I mean, all the atoms we're made of came from an
Right.
exploding
like you
star.
take-
From the exploding
like you
star,
take-
right.
you take
That's where quantum
a piece
entanglement
of
is like-
stainless steel, and stainless steel, even though it's
all of the energy that was ever
inanimate
created.
object, or you take a piece of nuclear waste. I mean, technically, it is.
It's something that was
from
alive
nature.
and now it just
But
lacks
to go off
those
of your point
Right.
on the programming, the stuff that was in nature, the building blocks of nature existed before programming existed, and they didn't
Right, yeah,
know.
so
but
you
they
could
didn't
argue-
know about it.
so you could
before.
argue
programming
that-
existed before they knew about that.
But
Yeah,
back
but
to the,
you could argue. I mean, they've made that correlation between nature and mathematics many millennia ago. So you can make the argument that modern programming came from mathematics. Mathematics came from nature. I mean, mathematics is the universal.
it's like the
language
most
of nature.
solid
Right.
piece of everything
So-
ever.
It really
Fair.
is. I mean, if you want to really get right
So
down to the
okay,
bare
to
bones
go
of it.
to that, if this is a random, not a simulation, then how is it so precise? Like you're
It's
saying,
not precise. It's
with the
chaos
math.
constantly,
It's
dude.
supposed to be.
It's,
Yeah,
dude, we live in constant chaos. Like if you try to step anywhere out of your like comfort zone, if you go to the desert, you're gonna die. Like if you have nothing, if you do not go to the desert prepared. Like if you live in Australia, you could step around a corner and get bit by something poisonous. Like this world is
The
like
size of you.
built to destroy you. Like there's nothing on this planet in nature that really
That
likes
doesn't
you.
necessarily argue that it's not a simulation. It just means that the person that created the simulation or people that created the simulation are bastards.
So the
Why
people who
did it-
created the simulation, are they like us?
What's your argument
I mean,
by
I don't
precise
know.
though? What is it you meant by
Well, I was
precise?
I was gonna argue that he's talking about how like math is the solid building block.
No, I'm just saying it's like the
like
one never changing thing.
Right, and to have
Like
that,
2 + 2 will always be 4.
Right, and
But
to
see,
me,
that
that's
goes
not
back to my
chaos.
argument now, or what we were talking about earlier, just with people about how we're arguing that 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4 anymore. So now it's my reality versus your reality, and can I influence enough people to live in my reality to make you wrong?
Right, like I guess I could create a group that 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4, and just like flat earther, and I could get a big enough following that.
But that goes back to my point. If enough people believed that the election was rigged, was it rigged?
Not necessarily.
I would argue that yes. I would.
You see
argue
where I'm
that-
going with
that
this now? The
that
power
if
of
you get-
observation?
If you get enough of a collective consciousness of enough people together, and they all believe in the same thing, and they all are going in that same direction. I mean, I believe that has the power to change reality for everyone else.
We have a real time experience. Like the federal government still recognizes marijuana as like a Schedule One drug.
Yeah.
The majority, I'm saying, I bet you 70% of Americans are focused
it
on
was
this.
70% a while ago. It's
Should
probably-
not be illegal. Like I'm sorry, the collective conscious has been moving in that direction for a long time, but we still see it.
But
I
don't
the
want
collective conscious was against prohibition. The vast majority of people in this country, aside from people that were part of temperance movements, were against prohibition, and prohibition happened. Why did prohibition happen? Because it makes money.
Alcoholism
It
is more
made
addictive
money.
too, though.
and it's not a
No,
Schedule
I'm not.
One.
But I'm
we're
not even.
arguing
I'm
that.
not even talking about like
You just-
when you get down to the down to the brass tacks when it comes to whatever vices
money.
or anything like that. Yeah, when you get right down to the bottom of it, prohibition made them a lot of money, and it allowed them to pass a lot of laws that were very intrusive, and
How long did it
they
last, though?
Stripped people of. Did you know that it took 15 years before legal alcohol could actually produce enough to be able to wipe out illegal alcohol?
Yeah.
Like that, it took 15 years after prohibition was ended. I mean, think about that. Well, I mean,
Say that
there's
again.
already a
I'm
lot
not
of
following.
rules.
Say that
Okay,
again.
so
The supply,
prohibition.
basically.
Oh, the supply. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
Supply
yeah.
was done illegally, and then it's essentially
It
the
took
same
them
thing.
15 years to catch up to
Yeah,
what was
because
made
they shut down. They
illegally.
shut down every distillery. The only distilleries that could even be in operation were only feeding pharmacies.
Wow.
So pharmacies could still, they
Right.
could sell booze if you had a prescription, not unlike medical marijuana that they can.
Which fun fact? Churchill got a prescription for alcohol when he came over here.
Yeah, shocker.
Yeah.
Right? Shocker.
A prescription
But
of
like,
Jaeger.
so I think it was in the 60s, marijuana like first got the bad rap, right?
It was because
Like, it
was earlier than that,
marijuana
wasn't it?
madness, or was it reefer
Reefer
madness?
madness.
It's like
Reefer
from the 20s
That's that
or
long ago.
30s. No, can we look? Do you use your computer machine?
Use a little Google machine.
Computer machine.
Use that thing.
It's reefer madness is older than you
Old.
think. Yeah.
So what are we arguing? We're looking for what year?
Well, I'm just saying,
I'll
like,
just do reefer madness.
but like,
what year? Yeah, what year?
because Jared's point was like all the stuff that came because of prohibition, like all this
1936.
1936.
So, but like this has happened for so long. Like, what has come out of banning marijuana besides taxpayer money? Like, think about how much money would have been able to be made by states.
Well,
like,
no,
think about
it-
how much they're making
right.
now. They're making shit tons
It's
of money.
They
because-
got to be
it's because they
making
can't
more
get-
now
it's-
than they were before.
It's
so
because they can't get their shit together. They can't do anything right. They want to reap the benefits of it. And back then, the lobbyists, as we were talking about earlier, I'm not trying to steer.
I think it was a
back to
culture
politics.
more than anything else.
They
though.
banned it because of cotton. It was they did a like a mass ban over the hemp. It was the hemp is what cotton wanted out of the way, and they just kind of mass banned both plants and you know.
One thing that
So fucking Hanes underwear has been
Yeah.
ruling this whole marijuana thing since
cotton-
1936.
Yes.
basically.
Fucking
Le-
Hanes.
Yes. Yep.
But I don't want to get into politics. I want to talk
But
more
I mean,
about
if you think about it, though, like there was an infrastructure already in place for alcohol ever since
Right.
the very beginning.
But we just grow.
this country.
Just
So
grow and hang it and dry it.
That's
Right.
But that's why they don't want to legalize it.
Right.
Because
It's harder.
It's more of like a cottage industry,
Yeah.
and it's never been legal in this country. So there's not like they can just turn the distilleries back on.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the alcohol in this country started with farmers. Farmers needed a way to be able to store corn in a way that it did not rot. The only way to do that was to turn it into whiskey. So they did.
And then somebody's like,
everything
we
was
should
great.
drink this.
So then next thing,
Well, somebody
next thing you
drank
know, I mean, they were making great money off it. Next thing you know, the federal government decides to start taxing it. People got very angry, and there was all sorts of whiskey rebellions. And if you look that up, I mean, that's a well-documented
Right.
thing. That was one of the first times that our fledgling federal government decided to step in and start dictating what people were allowed to do and not do on their own private property. And from that point on, alcohol was regulated, man. And it just built and built and built until we got to a point where there was, legal distilleries all over the place. Alcohol was legal. There was an immense amount of drinking in this country, more than what we have now per capita.
I think last
And-
year broke the record though.
Well, it may
Definitely divorces, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Domestic
just by
abuse
percentage
Domestic
of
abuse
population,
and divorces
it was
went
way
up.
worse back
I
then.
mean, if
It was
For-
way worse.
fair,
I
yeah.
mean, just by
Yeah.
percentage of population, and people tied it on back then. I mean, they were drinking first thing in the morning. I mean, it was.
What do you think about? I mean, because everything gets smarter, right? I mean, in theory, right? Sounds like we're getting dumber, but essentially, like the drugs are getting more sophisticated. So now we're looking at mushrooms and kind of some of those like LSD and things of that. Psychedelics. They're getting more sophisticated, and there's going to be a push.
What do you
in
mean by
10,
sophisticated?
15. Just like the rations are a little bit better, the highs don't last as long, and the negative effects aren't there as much. Like they're being tampered with.
may I?
Sure. I'm just at, well, let me ask my question first. Like, do you see 10, 15 years, maybe longer, maybe shorter, where those are the new marijuana push? That becomes the new thing.
Well, it's already starting if you look at.
I feel like it has too.
It's already
So-
starting if you look at the
Criminalizing
pattern.
sounds
Right.
like it.
There's
Should it
already
be?
places, yes, I believe. There are already places that have decriminalized it. Our own Ann Arbor was one of the very first
Decriminalized what?
psilocybin mushrooms.
It was like Denver.
Denver,
Really?
I was like Oregon, they always do it out. The Colorado, I think, was actually first, or Oregon, but
But I think it was specific to Denver, not the whole state.
right. But no, Ann Arbor was one of the top 10, maybe even top 5 to
decriminalize it.
decriminalize.
What did they learn from it? Like,
They're
what
trying
is
to
it?
use
There are
it for
studies.
therapy.
They're trying to use it for
Therapy.
It's huge on PTSD.
MDMA came from therapy.
Right.
Okay.
Like people were taking MDMA, going to therapy, being good. Then someone said, "Oh wow, we can make this recreational," and then people just have a fun time.
I think
taking ecstasy.
basically
and they just called it ecstasy.
It's one of those things where done right, it's safe, and I feel that everybody should do it. It's hard to explain. Everybody should try it safely for themselves.
Remember in high school, they used to tell us that ecstasy would bore little holes
Yep,
in your
in
brain.
your spine.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it would just drain like your,
Was that Reisner?
your brain fluid.
probably
Probably.
As he was,
Yeah.
But I mean,
as he
it
was
was
hitting
highly-
the crumpled
highly
up paper
effective.
with his yardstick.
I remember.
Now watch me hit this shot. Yeah.
I remember in health class,
Hold that
I
thought.
had a call out to Joe Decker because for some reason, but health class, he got kicked out of health class because Reisner goes around about drugs, sex, and rock and roll. And Decker goes Motley Crue. He goes, get out. He's
Man,
like,
I've
Did you
seen
see that
Decker
movie?
Forever.
what?
The movie about Motley Crue?
No, I heard it was
Pretty good.
Yeah, I heard they kind of just let it all out.
Yeah.
Their book, I mean, it's off their book, so it was already out there. I guess.
Hey, here's what we're going to do. So we're going to stay on. We're going to keep going. This is going to be, I'm going to do something new this year. I'm going to have a special overtime period for Spotify. Okay. Just for my audio listeners. All right. Because we're getting ready to end our YouTube portion of the show.
Okay.
All right. So if you're out there in YouTube land, carry over, go to Spotify, check out the remaining part of this conversation. That's the only place you can be able to catch it. All right. With that being said, I want to get to this Federal Reserve story. All right. Tell me how Federal Reserves control pretty much everything up until this point right now.
The Federal Reserve. Oh boy, this is a big.
This is
Here we go.
This
Like,
is-
I want
Me too. Follow us here. Here we go.
Honestly, this has been covered like
Yeah.
in extraordinary detail. I would recommend anybody that's really interested in this read the book The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Okay.
That book it's very long. There's a few parts that are pretty dry, but it's very good. It will explain it a lot better than I'll explain it. But I'm gonna give the the Cliff Notes version.